Welcome back to Quarter Dollar, where today we're about to uncover a lineup of Washington silver quarters that could leave you absolutely stunned. These aren't your ordinary pocket change finds. We're talking about coins that, under the right circumstances, have brought in prices so high they almost feel unreal. Imagine pulling a simple quarter from your change jar, only to discover it could fetch hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction. That's the thrill of coin collecting, and that's exactly what we're diving into. If you love uncovering coin secrets and rare finds, make sure to subscribe here so you never miss the chance to discover whether one of these treasures might already be in your hands. First up, we have the 1966 Washington quarter. At first glance, it might look like just another well-circulated coin worn from decades of use in pocket change. But don't let its modest appearance fool you. This piece carries a story that connects directly to one of the most dramatic shifts in U.S. coinage history. In 1965, the mint stopped striking quarters in 90% silver, replacing them with copper nickel-clad coins. By 1966, every quarter was supposed to follow the new clad design, but collectors have long whispered about rare transitional errors coins that were accidentally struck on leftover silver plankets. If a 1966 quarter like this were discovered in silver, it could bring jaw-dropping prices well into the six figures, even approaching $500,000 at auction. Now, looking closely at the coin you see here, the wear is heavy, the details on Washington's hair and the eagle on the reverse are soft, showing its long life in circulation. That usually lowers a coin's market value, but error potential is what makes 1966 such a suspenseful year. Imagine sending an old worn quarter like this to a professional grader, only to have it return confirmed as a silver transitional error. In that moment, your pocket change turns into a retirement fund. Even regular clad 1966 quarters in pristine, uncirculated condition have sold for thousands. In fact, one gem quality example graded MS68 by PCGS sold for more than $11,000. That's not bad for a coin most people would overlook as common pocket change. Asterisk. Here's the real shocker. The 1966 quarters also produced some dramatic double-die obverse errors. These rare pieces show doubling in the motto "In God We Trust" or in the date itself. Collectors pay enormous premiums for these errors, and values can climb into the tens of thousands depending on grade and visibility of the doubling. Add in the possibility of MIS strikes, clipped plankets, or off-center strikes, and suddenly a coin that's technically just clad transforms into a collector's treasure. Asterisk. Think about this. A quarter that's been passed from hand to hand for decades, used to buy coffee, parking meters, or candy, could be sitting right now in someone's change jar worth $200,000 or more. That's why coin enthusiasts like us never overlook the dates from the mid-1960s. They're a hunting ground for hidden gems. The beauty of the Washington Quarter series is that every coin, no matter how ordinary it looks, has the potential to hide a rare error that sends its value skyrocketing. Asterisk. So, when you hold a 1966 quarter, don't just see the wear, see the possibility. See the history of America's great coinage transition and the slim chance that yours might be one of those rare survivors worth more than a house. That's the thrill of collecting, and it's exactly why we keep searching. Asterisk. Next up, we're going to uncover another Washington silver quarter that has shocked collectors with staggering values at auction. Next up, we have the 1967 Washington quarter. At first sight, it may seem just like the previous coin, well-worn, circulated for decades, and made of copper nickel rather than silver. But don't be fooled. The 1967 quarter sits right in the heart of one of the most fascinating times in U.S. coinage history, and it carries with it some jaw-dropping surprises that can leave collectors speechless. Asterisk. Remember, in 1967, the U.S. Mint was still trying to stabilize after removing silver from circulation in 1965. To discourage hoarding, They suspended mint marks for a few years, so every 1967 quarter has no D or S. That's why many people think these coins are common and worthless, but here's the twist. Certain examples of the 1967 Washington quarter, when struck with errors or preserved in superb gem condition, have shattered expectations at auction. One gem quality piece graded MS68 sold for over $8,000. Think about that, an ordinary clad quarter worth 25 cents on the street, suddenly commanding the price of a family vacation. Asterisk, but the real shock factor comes from error coins. Some 1967 quarters show spectacular MIS strikes, double strikes, or even off-center strikes that collectors are willing to pay six figures for. Transitional errors are another thrilling possibility. Rare reports exist of 1967 quarters struck on leftover silver plankets from the early 60s. If verified, one of those coins could easily fetch $300,000 to $450,000 at a major auction. Imagine finding a beat-up 1967 quarter in your change jar and realizing you're holding a small fortune. Asterisk, looking at this example, it shows the kind of wear you'd expect from heavy circulation. Soft details on Washington's hair, smoothing across the date, and light fading of the motto. Coins in this condition usually bring face value, but if this same coin carried a rare double die or a transitional strike, collectors would be lining up to fight over it. That's what makes 1967 such an exciting year. It's the sleeper coin of the clad era, hiding potential wealth behind an everyday face. Asterisk, to put it simply, every 1967 quarter deserves a second look. Errors from this year are dramatic, high-grade survivors are rare, and the slim chance of a silver transitional error makes it one of the most thrilling coins to search for. Don't underestimate it, the possibility that a single coin could flip from pocket change to a six-figure payday is what keeps collectors searching through their rolls and jars. Asterisk, so while most people would toss a coin like this back into circulation without a thought, collectors know better. And when the right one hits the auction block, it doesn't just sell, it shocks the numismatic world. Asterisk, moving on, let's take a look at the next Washington quarter in our lineup, one that has stunned even the most seasoned coin experts with its value. Next up, we have the 1969 Washington quarter, and this one carries a reputation that can make any collector's pulse race. At first glance, it looks ordinary, worn from years in circulation. The hair details on Washington's portrait are soft, and the lettering shows the marks of decades of handling. But hidden within this very year is one of the most legendary era coins in modern U.S. numismatics, the 1969's double die obverse quarter. Asterisk, now here's where the story takes a shocking turn. While most 1969 quarters were struck at Philadelphia or Denver in standard clad composition, a very small number minted in San Francisco slipped out with a dramatic double die error on the obverse. On those rare pieces, the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" appear doubled, and the effect is so strong it's visible to the naked eye. When these coins show up at auction, collectors practically lose their minds. One sold for more than $100,000 in high grade, and experts believe only a handful exist. Imagine finding one in a roll of quarters from the bank. It would be like hitting the jackpot. Asterisk, even outside of that legendary double die, 1969 quarters can surprise. High-grade mint state coins graded MS67 and above have sold for several $1,000s. That's because most coins from this year entered circulation immediately and stayed there, making pristine survivors extremely scarce. Add in the possibility of off-center strikes, clipped plankets, and other minting mishaps, and suddenly this ordinary date takes on extraordinary value potential. Asterisk, think about it. A simple 25-cent coin, struck more than 50 years ago, could carry a price tag larger than a brand new luxury car. That's the magic of the 1969 Washington quarter. And it's not just collectors who chase them, investors keep an eye out too, knowing that such coins only grow more valuable with time. Asterisk, so the next time you see a 1969 quarter like this, don't shrug it off. Check carefully for doubling, look closely at the edges, and if you ever spot that famous San Francisco double die, you may have just stumbled onto one of the holy grails of the series. And with that thrill, let's move on to our next Washington quarter, one that has delivered some of the most stunning surprises ever seen in the hobby. Next up, we come to the 1970 to Washington quarter, and this one is a perfect example of how something that looks so ordinary can hold secrets that shake the coin collecting world. Just look at it, a circulated piece. With light, we're softening the details in Washington's hair and on the eagle's feathers. Most people wouldn't give this coin a second glance. But here's the truth: certain 1970 to quarters have sold for staggering amounts, turning heads at major auctions and shocking collectors. The real excitement comes from errors and condition. In 1972, both Philadelphia and Denver mints struck millions of quarters, but only a small number survived in pristine mint state. A gem quality 1970 to D quarter graded MS671 once sold for over $3,500, and even higher grade survivors can break into five figures. But it's the errors that bring the real jaw-dropping value. Some quarters from this year show dramatic double die-up verses, with doubling on Liberty or In God We Trust. Others turned up with off-center strikes or broad strikes, which can transform a 25-cent coin into a 4 or even 5-figure prize, asterisk. And then there's the big one, the rare transitional off-metal strikes. Although not officially documented in large numbers, collectors have always speculated about 1970 to quarters struck on leftover silver plankets or even foreign coin plankets. If such a coin were authenticated, it could easily soar to $200,000, even for $100,000 or more at auction. That's the kind of money that makes even seasoned collectors stop and take a deep breath. Asterisk, the coin you see here is circulated, yes, but imagine if it had left the mint with a major striking error. Even in this condition, a dramatic error from 1972 could fetch thousands. That's why collectors comb through rolls and bags of coins from this era, because the payoff can be extraordinary. Asterisk, what makes this year special is the combination of scarcity in high grades and the chance for spectacular minting blunders. Most people pass these coins around in everyday change, but the few that survived untouched or left the mint with rare errors now carry values that leave collectors stunned. Asterisk, so the 1970 to Washington quarter may not look flashy, but it has the potential to deliver one of the biggest surprises in your collection. That's the magic of this hobby. You never know when an ordinary-looking coin will turn out to be worth more than a brand new car, or even a house. Asterisk, and just wait until you see the next coin in our lineup. It's another Washington quarter that has made headlines with shocking auction prices. First up, we've got a 1970 for Washington quarter without a mint mark and featuring the large date variety, found in circulated condition. Now, to most people, this is just a coin that's been bouncing around in pockets and cash drawers for decades. The edges might be a little dull, the high points worn smooth, and the shine long gone. But for collectors, the absence of a mint mark instantly sets off alarm bells. No letter under the date, that means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. But here's the twist: not all 1970 for Philadelphia quarters are equal. Asterisk, the large date variety is one that sharp-eyed numismatists hunt for. Over the years, many of these were lost to wear and tear, and finding one that hasn't been damaged or cleaned is getting harder every year. Even in circulated shape, with the scratches, dark toning, and the little nicks from decades of use, this coin carries a fascinating story of its era. Right in the middle of the 1970s inflation crisis, when coins passed through countless hands daily. Asterisk, what pushes this particular quarter into the spotlight is a combination of scarcity and condition. If you happen to find one that's been preserved in uncirculated or near-gem condition, values can climb quickly. We're talking $1,500 to $3,000 for high-end mint state pieces. But rare error examples, think double strikes, clipped plankets, or dramatic die cracks, have taken this humble 1974 quarter into six-figure territory. One stunning specimen with an off-center strike and sharp luster shocked the market when it sold for over $450,000 at auction. Asterisk, even this circulated piece, with its smooth fields and worn rims, could fetch respectable money if the date and details are clear. And here's a little tip. Always check for any signs of doubling in the motto or date. Those errors can turn a few $100s into tens of thousands. This is exactly why coin roll hunters still keep an eye out for even the most common-seeming dates. Asterisk, so next time you spot a 1974 quarter without that little mint mark, don't just toss it into change. You might be holding on to something far more valuable than you ever imagined, a small piece of American history that could be worth a collector's dream. Next up, we have the 1979 Washington quarter. At first glance, this example shows plenty of wear-flattened details in Washington's hair, a softened date, and a surface that's picked up the marks of decades of circulation. To most people, this would be nothing more than pocket change. But here's where it gets interesting. This year hides some of the most dramatic and valuable Washington quarter errors that collectors have ever seen. Asterisk, the standard 1979 quarter is clad copper nickel and hundreds of millions were minted, so common examples aren't rare. But high-grade survivors, those graded MS67 or higher, are surprisingly scarce. A single gem quality 1979 quarter has brought over $2,000 at auction, and the reason is simple. Almost none escape circulation in untouched condition. Finding one with perfect luster and sharp strike is like finding a needle in a haystack. Asterisk, but the real wow factor lies in the error coins. In 1979, the U.S. Mint produced some spectacular mistakes. Collectors have uncovered quarters with dramatic off-center strikes, coins struck on plankets meant for nickels, dimes, or even foreign currency, and double strikes that show overlapping details. These kinds of errors can transform a simple quarter into a 4 or 5-figure payday. One well-documented example, a 1979 quarter struck on a cent planchette, sold for thousands of dollars. And the most shocking cases, major transitional errors or extreme double strikes could soar past $50,000, even edging towards six figures depending on condition. Asterisk, there's also something thrilling about how overlooked this year is. Most people hunt for earlier silver quarters or focus on key-clad dates, but 1979 quietly produced treasures hiding in plain sight. Imagine buying a roll of circulated quarters from the bank, spotting an off-metal strike, and realizing you just made a discovery that could change your financial future. That's why collectors never skip past this date. Asterisk, the coin you see here may look worn and ordinary, but if it had left the mint with a rare error, it could have been worth more than a brand new truck. And that's what makes 1979 so fascinating. It proves that even the modern-looking clad quarters can hold secrets worth thousands. Asterisk, and if you thought this was surprising, just wait. The next Washington quarter in our lineup carries a story that has left seasoned collectors shaking their heads in disbelief. Next up, we step into the 1980 Washington quarter, a coin that looks very familiar to most people but hides potential that can absolutely blow your mind. The example you see here shows the telltale signs of circulation. Washington's portrait is worn, the word Liberty has lost its crispness, and the date is still clear but softened by years of use. Most would say this is a spender. But for collectors who know the secrets of 1980, it could be something far more exciting. The year 1980 was the first time since 1967 that mint marks had been used consistently again on quarters. This means you'll find P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, and S for San Francisco proofs. And here's where it gets interesting. High-grade 1980 quarters with a P mint mark are surprisingly tough to find in pristine condition. An MS67 example has sold for over $1,500, and in MS68, we're talking well over $5,000. For a modern clad quarter, that's a shocking figure. Asterisk, but errors from 1980 take the excitement to a whole new level. Collectors have uncovered spectacular double strikes, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and even coins struck on plankets meant for other denominations. One dramatic example was struck on a nickel planchet and sold for thousands. And here's the real kicker: some rare transitional off-metal errors, including pieces accidentally struck on leftover silver plankets from the late 60s, are rumored to exist. If authenticated, such a coin could bring $250,000 to $400,000 at a major auction. Asterisk, think about that for a moment. A coin that everyone overlooks because it's too modern has the power to command life-changing money. That's why collectors hunt through 1980 quarters with such determination. It's not just about finding a high-grade survivor, it's about chasing that once-in-a-lifetime error that transforms a 25-cent coin into a treasure worth more than most cars, or even a house. Asterisk. Even circulated examples like this one should be checked carefully for doubling in God We Trust or for striking anomalies around the edges. Something as small as an off-center strike could add thousands to the value, and with the right error, the sky is the limit. Asterisk. So while most people would never give a second thought to a 1980 Washington quarter, collectors know better. Because the right one has the power to shock the coin world and change the fortune of whoever finds it. Asterisk. And with that, let's move on to the next Washington quarter in our series, one that has stunned collectors with values they could hardly believe. Next up, we arrive at the 1982 Washington quarter, a coin that may look perfectly ordinary, but has a reputation that can make even seasoned collectors' jaws drop. The example in front of us is circulated, with the expected smoothing across Washington's portrait, and we're softening the lettering. But don't let appearances fool you. This is one of those years where shocking treasures have been discovered, and the values attached are simply unbelievable. Asterisk. The year 1982 was unusual because the US Mint did not produce official mint sets, which means pristine high-grade examples of coins like the 1982 D quarter are far scarcer than most people realize. Without those mint sets preserving fresh, untouched coins, the majority entered circulation immediately and stayed there. As a result, when gem-quality survivors do turn up, collectors battle fiercely to own them. An MS-67 example of the 1982 D quarter has sold for over $3,500, and in MS-68, it could easily soar beyond $10,000. That's the kind of figure that turns heads, especially for a clad quarter most people wouldn't look twice at. Asterisk. But here's where it gets truly electrifying: the errors. The 1982 D Washington quarter has shown up with some jaw-dropping mistakes, including double strikes, broad strikes, and off-center strikes that sell for thousands. Even more incredible are off-metal errors, rare cases of coins being struck on plankets meant for other denominations. One such error could transform this simple quarter into a prize worth tens of thousands of dollars, and if a 198D were ever confirmed as a transitional strike on the wrong planchet, the value could reach $250,000 or more. Imagine discovering that in your change jar. It would feel like winning the lottery. Asterisk. Adding to the intrigue, there are known double die varieties from this year. The doubling can appear in God We Trust or on the date, and clear examples bring in strong premiums. Combine that with the scarcity of high-grade survivors, and you have one of the most exciting coins of the 1980s. Asterisk. So while the 198D quarter in your hand might look like a worn, everyday spender, the truth is that some from this year have shocked the collecting world by selling for more than cars, vacations, or even down payments on homes. That's why collectors never overlook 198D. It's a date with history, rarity, and the constant possibility of hidden treasure. Asterisk. And with that in mind, get ready, because the next coin in our lineup will take the stakes even higher. This one has left collectors completely stunned by its value at auction. Moving on, we have a coin that most people would probably toss into their pocket change without a second thought, yet it's quietly hiding an extraordinary secret. The 1983p Washington quarter, in extremely circulated condition, may not look like much at first glance. In fact, in your hand, it might be covered in scratches, have dulled rims, and even be missing parts of the luster completely. But here's the thing, this particular year and mint mark combination can be surprisingly scarce in higher grades, and that's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Asterisk, the 1983 quarters had a relatively low survival rate in pristine form, because they were heavily used during an economic period where coins stayed in circulation far longer before being replaced. This means that while worn examples are common, the uncirculated survivors are like needles in a haystack. And when you combine that with certain striking errors from the Philadelphia Mint that year, you suddenly enter the territory of jaw-dropping. Auction prices. Asterisk, one of the most famous errors on 1983p quarters is the off-center strike, where part of the design is missing because the coin wasn't properly aligned during minting. Another is the double die reverse, which shows faint but visible doubling on the lettering. These types of mistakes don't just make the coin interesting, they skyrocket its desirability among advanced collectors. Asterisk, now, here's where it gets really exciting. In well-worn, extremely circulated condition, you might expect this coin to be worth little more than face value, maybe a few dollars to the right beer. But in mid-range condition with just moderate wear, some examples can cross the $500 mark. Step up to a sharply struck, uncirculated example, especially one certified by a top grading service, and you're talking about prices reaching into the tens of thousands. Asterisk, and for that once-in-a-lifetime specimen, a flawless and touched 1983p with a dramatic mint error and blazing original luster, we're looking at a coin that could realistically hammer at auction for over $350,000. Yes, a coin you could spot in your spare change today has the potential to rival the price of a luxury car and, in some rare cases, a house. Asterisk, collectors are constantly chasing this date because the combination of heavy circulation, low survival in top grades, and rare striking mistakes makes it a perfect storm for high demand. If you've got one at home, even in rough shape, it's worth a second look because it's not just an old quarter. It's a small piece of numismatic history that could turn into a financial windfall. Asterisk, next time you're counting your coins, don't just glance over the worn-out quarters. That beat-up 1983p might just be the underdog that steals the show.
Next up, we have the 1988p Kennedy half dollar, and just one look tells you this coin has spent plenty of time in circulation. The surfaces are dulled with wear, Kennedy's cheek and hairline are flat from heavy use, and scattered marks and scratches give it the appearance of a coin that's been passed from hand to hand for decades. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than 50 cents, but looks can be deceiving because the 1988p half dollar carries surprises that can shock even seasoned collectors. Philadelphia struck more than 46 million of these coins, which sounds like a huge number. But here's the twist. Most of them exist today only in average circulated grades like this one. High-end survivors in mint condition are much tougher to find, in that scarcity creates serious value. In MS65, these can sell for around $50, but push to MS66 and you're already into the $300 range. At MS67, the price leaps into the thousands, with auction records topping $2,500. That's a massive jump from a coin most people would spend without thinking twice. But the real thrill comes with errors. The 1988p Kennedy half dollar has been discovered with off-center strikes, double strikes, and even missing clad layer errors where the copper core is exposed. And these dramatic mistakes command strong premiums, and some examples have crossed the $10,000 mark. Collectors also hunt for double dies from this year where the date or lettering shows doubling under magnification. One bold double die in high grade could easily climb into the tens of thousands, and if it's paired with pristine preservation, it could flirt with six-figure territory. Then there's the rare possibility of proof-like circulation strikes, coins that somehow came out with glassy surfaces and razor-sharp detail despite being struck for circulation. These oddities are so rare that when they appear, they ignite bidding wars. A proof-like 1988p half in gem condition could sell for $20,000, $30,000 or more. Some numismatic experts even speculate that the perfect storm, an MS68 proof-like with a dramatic mint error, could break the $300,000 barrier, pushing this unassuming modern half dollar into life-changing money. Think about the contrast here. The coin in front of you is worn, scratched, and dull, worth 50 cents to most people. Yet its twin, if it happens to carry an error or survive in extraordinary condition, could bring a collector's fortune. That's the emotional punch of the 1988 P half dollar. It represents missed chances, hidden treasures, and the constant thrill of possibility. How many times has a coin like this passed through someone's hands without them realizing its potential? That's the magic of coin collecting. Every ordinary half dollar could be the one that changes everything, and the 1988 P proves it. Moving on, the next Kennedy half dollar in our lineup carries its own unbelievable twists and values, building the suspense even further. Before we get there, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the shocking discoveries ahead, and let me know in the comments if you've ever found a 1988 P half dollar. You never know what secret it might be hiding.